Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's episode of Methanol Madness presented by the Ranch Bar and Grill. I'm joined with AJ Batt here and we're at the Ruapuna Speedway Club Rooms for tonight's Fan Fest. AJ, it's been a great turnout here tonight as we gear up for a massive weekend of racing.
Yeah, what a brilliant turnout, and they've come from near and far, and it's one of those unique opportunities where people can mix and mingle, and speedway races, when it comes to motorsport, they're just so good with their race fans, aren't they? And the merch has been flying out the door, and just people going around getting autographs, and it's really cool. It's just something pretty special.
Of course, if you stay tuned on our Facebook page, we've got the autograph bingo floating around tonight as well for these guys here that are getting a head start on it. So if you're here tomorrow, head to the fan zone, grab an autograph bingo. You're going to get 8 signatures, 7 of those the Americans and 1 of your favourite driver. If you complete that, send us a photo, you go in the draw to win a merchandise pack. So pretty sweet deal going on there. But for tonight's episode of Methanol Madness, we wanted to bring you amongst the chaos, but we also obviously want to support our supporters of the show, one of which being KH Fabrication. So we're going to start off with tonight's crash of the week presented by KH Fabrication. AJ, this one goes back to Carnival fireworks night in the Dalton Sprint Car Summer Slam feature with Connor Rangi.
Yeah, look, Connor was running really, really hot and hard, wasn't he? And he just got into a little bit of strife down there in the prison bend, backed the car and it stood up and over she went. And really unlucky for Connor because he was looking almost a dead set certainty for a podium spot.
It was very disappointing for Connor. Of course, he won the first round of the Dalton Sprint Car Summer Slam. Round 2 rained off, and then round 3 he was looking pretty good there. I think he was running in about that second position, so very disappointing end to the night there for Connor. But speaking of which, we're going to head into our review segment where we'll go back into the Carnival fireworks night that was sponsored by Gary Cockram Isuzu. AJ, what an amazing night. Always one of the favourites here at Ruapuna Speedway on the calendar.
Yeah, well, one of the things Ruapuna has tried to make a night at the Speedway more than just a night at the Speedway, the entertainment package. But there is something really cool about hearing the crowd screaming when they're in those carnival rides and so on. And it just sets a slightly different atmosphere to a race meeting, doesn't it? And everyone arrives with the intention of having a whole lot of fun. But it also brings out the best in the competitors. There's always a good crowd here. And, race car drivers are performers, and they love the crowd, they love the occasion. And Carnival night, it is something that Ruapuna does exceedingly well.
I totally agree. So we also had some of the rained out Canterbury Champs events ran that night as well for those feature events, which saw Jackson Clark return to victory lane in the quarter midgets, picking up their Canterbury Champs. He's been pretty stellar in the quarter midgets to watch the last couple of seasons, AJ, and another outstanding result for him after picking up a feature winner Ellesmere already as well.
Yeah, not really a surprise for him to be the guy that stepped up this year. The quarter midgets, it tends to take a season or two before the kids sort of really get a handle on it. But, there's so much talent out there, and these kids, they're the stars of the future.
The Lightning Sprints have also been incredible to watch so far this season, and we saw an increase in numbers in them last season, and to watch that build again this season, and we've seen some fresh talent come in yet again as well. How awesome was it to see Clay Porhio pick up that feature win?
Boy, he came out of nowhere, didn't he? Came out of the grass carts and straight onto the speedway, and he is just such a talented race car driver, and he's got a big future in front of him.
And we saw such a convincing drive there from Brett Booth at the start of the season as well, and he was there as well, but there was just something about the way that Clay was driving that night that there was no way you'd be able to tell that he was a rookie, and it's very rare that you see that in a speedway driver.
Yeah, exactly, and he does come from a motorsport background and so on, but you've got to transfer that to what you put down on the racetrack, and like Boothie has been around an awful long time, and he probably just has to sit back and concede that Clay was a guy on the night. What I see is during the season, those two are probably going to be the dominant forces, but they're going to have some other rivalries. We're getting 15, 16, 17 cars in that class now, which is unbelievable for a section that was almost dead and buried a couple of 3 years back. So, the likes of Clay, they inject a real enthusiasm and a whole lot of interest into it.
Yes, they've also got great support from the Tonkin family with the Savvy Enviro services contributing a lot to that class as well. And, it's always good when you see a team show up with multiple cars as well to a race meeting.
Yeah, and Speedway, it kind of is going against the trend with the economy. Everyone's down and out about the economy, and there's a lot of sort of negative thinking, but Speedway just appears to have avoided that. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and when you start getting teams, they feed off each other, the drivers do, the pit crews, they're able to compare notes and what works for what, and they tend to run very, very similar gear. So, yeah, bring on the teams.
Totally agree. There was also the TQs on Carnival Fireworks Night as well. They ran their Best Pairs event, but for the feature race, it was Lockie Brett taking out yet another victory. Some really strong performances there from Ethan Smith as well as Malachi Webb up there in the mix as well, AJ. We're really seeing that the young generation of TQ drivers, and Lockie's been outstanding to watch this season already.
Yeah, and I think it's probably set in concrete that he will almost definitely follow his father as a national champion. He is just so good. And he's another one. He's a bit like Clay Poyo. When Lockie arrived in the TQs last year, he just immediately impressed and makes people sit up. And when you got drivers from other classes that make comments about how good some of these guys are, boy, it tells you a whole lot.
I totally agree. So it's been amazing to watch those guys. And it's interesting you bring up that national title there. Of course, the TQs are racing this Saturday, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on in the show. But this is pretty much their last meeting, for a lot of these local guys before the New Zealand title at Waikaraka Park and the end of January almost, I believe it is. So, with that kind of looming in their minds, I'm sure that Lockie will be headed up for that. But there's a lot of kind of to and froing between the TQ class and the South Island and the North Island, and there's a lot of strong competitors like Aaron Humble as well, but it'll be interesting to see Lockie head up and hopefully compete in that.
Yeah, I do think our guys are probably up against it a little this time around. But Waikaraka, a number of them will have already raced there in some shape or form during the International Midget Series and so on. But the new surface, the new everything up there at Waikaraka Park, it is going to level the playing field. But, the likes of Aaron Humble, and there's a whole bunch of them up there that they will really want to break that South Island deadlock that has been led by Jeremy Webb.
The Carnival Fireworks Night was the round one of the Graham Hill Roofing Midget Super Series. We saw this series come to life last season as well, AJ, and there was a lot of, really close battles throughout those rounds, but to see it come back to life again, round one was on Carnival Night, of course, and it was Jay Chadwick picking up the win. A little bit of controversy there as well. Jeremy Webb actually finished third in the feature, but unfortunately did not cross the scales, which led to a disqualification, which put Liam McCoubry up onto the podium. That was a result that Liam was pretty happy with. AJ, it's not the way that you want to get on the podium, but points-wise, when you're points racing over numerous rounds in a series, that's really important.
Yeah, you take what you can get, because what you get one week, you could lose half of that the following week. So I think Jay Chadwick's form really shouldn't be a surprise, because he threatened all of last season without quite nailing the flag to the mast. But he's got Kaz Townsend in the corner and so on, and they're a real force this year.
Now getting into the sprint car portion of Carnival Fireworks Night as well. It was round 3 of the Dalton Sprint Car Summer Slam, and what a race it was. Getting to see Jonathan Allard Parker in victory lane, and of course the overall points awarded for the Dalton Sprint Car Summer Slam as well. Dalton's is a company that does a lot as a partnership for Ruapuna Speedway, and to be able to reward them with a really good series is always an amazing thing, to be able to give back to the community, give back to the races that put so much into these rounds. Obviously unfortunate it was shortened down to only 2 after the rain out on Canterbury Champs Night, but of course seeing Jamie Duff take out the overall win was pretty lucky for Jamie.
Yeah, he'll be pretty happy about that. It's sort of been a bit of an up and down season. There's no doubt about the Duff man. He has got the pace, he's got the experience and so on, and the luck ebbs and flows and so on. But I thought that for Carnival Night, the fact that we had 3 Americans here, we had Brenham Crouch, we had Joel Myers, and we had Jonathan Allard, it tells me a lot about the esteem that Ruapuna has held in as far as sprint car racing goes. And then when you sort of sit back and reflect, how lucky are we that we get to see Jonathan Allard, a Hall of Famer, a genuine Hall of Famer when it comes to sprint car racing. And then Brenham and Joel are both young lions. But what's really encouraging is the fact that they're not totally dominating. Connor Rangi, he was locked into that second spot in that feature race before he had his little misadventure. But a lot of the local guys are fast. And for the new boys, I'll pluck a name out like Bailey Clive in just a second season of sprint car racing. To be in a field like that is so fast, it does drag you along, and they sit there and they watch and they learn and they get on the pace a little bit quicker. And I think the intensity that we've seen in sprint cars at Ruapuna in the last 2 or 3 seasons has played a really big role in the development of these younger guys. And then you get someone like Matt Honeywell, who sort of get to see every now and again. And he shows the real talent that he is. He's not a young man, but boy, he just gets into it. And Matthew Levisage not doing the North Island run as much as he has in the past. So we've got some real strength in the field.
Absolutely. And as you spoke about there, having 3 Americans at our Carnival fireworks night was actually the start of an all-American podium run almost for the last few meetings that we've seen here in the South Island. That all started on Carnival night with Jonathan Allard taking out the win, Brenham Crouch finishing in second, and Joel Myers Jr. in third. And now we've just wrapped up a weekend of international racing down at Central Motor Speedway in Cromwell. AJ, it was the first 2 rounds of the War of the Wings. There was no feature on the Friday night due to some dust issues causing unsafe racing conditions, but they were awarded the feature results based on their qualifying points, which had Jonathan Allard taking out the win, Caleb Montgomery and Tanner Holmes also on the podium there, so that was all Americans yet again. And the same for Saturday, except for Jacob McIntyre, the only Kiwi to finish on a sprint car podium in the South Island in the last 3 meetings leading into this weekend here at Ruapuna Speedway. It's been a very impressive run for these guys to come halfway across the world and continue with so much speed.
Oh, absolutely, and sort of like we've got to put some things into context with the number of races that the American guys do. But I think it's showing that there is some very good strength here, and I was very impressed with Jacob McIntyre. He is a guy that tends to race with his foot right up it. And yeah, it did take a Jamie Duff era for Jacob to get through, but the fact that he'd worked his way to be in the position to capitalise tells you a whole lot, because Jacob McIntyre runs Cromwell very, very well, and he is the sort of guy that could fly a little under the radar when it comes to the nationals down there. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in the top 5 one little bit. But yeah, Cromwell, it's a different racetrack, it's a different ball game. It's very fast, but the traffic does tend to spread out as opposed to the quarter-mile bull ring that we've got here at Ruapuna. And Ruapuna perhaps produces a little bit more elbows up, frenetic racing and so on. But yeah, I really felt for the Cromwell guys with that weather, the rain, the wind and so on. They were up against it, but when you boil it down, we saw some amazing performances down there, and you'll go a long way to see a better run around the top of a racetrack than what Brenham Crouch pulled out in the pole shuffle. That was mind-blowing. It was just so good to watch, and it tells you the talent these guys have got.
I think I totally agree there. Brenham stepping into the Daniel Anderson racing car for the first time this season, and seeing the way that they've gelled together, we know that Brenham and Joel have had a really good friendship for a number of years, and last time he was in New Zealand, just last season, he was able to race for Kevin Freeman and run a lot of the War of the Wings there as well, and being able to come back and build on that experience that he's had at the tracks that he's visited so far already with Ruapuna and Cromwell. And I mean, that pole shuffle, as you just spoke about there, he conquered about half the rounds of that pole shuffle in a very mesmerising fashion, and it was really cool to see Brenham come back to New Zealand and kind of display some of that talent. And he's done so many laps this year in America with the High Limit Racing Tour, racing for CJB Motorsports, so it's been really impressive to watch Brenham, and I'm hoping that run continues into this weekend.
Yeah, and when Brenham came out here originally, a lot of it's to get that quarter-mile exposure, and I was lucky enough to be up in the States in August, and I saw Brenham run on a couple of or 3 quarter-mile tracks, and he was a totally different kettle of fish, and that's one of the things that the big series over in the States do. It's intense, it's a real mix and match. There's one week you're doing a half mile, the following Thursday night you're doing a third of a mile, then you've got a couple of quarter miles, then you're back up to a half mile, and so that makes a complete race car driver out of them. And Brenham, very, very impressive with those runs, and he put up a darn good showing here at Ruapuna at Carnival night as well, so I would not be surprised to see him on the top step this weekend at one race or the other.
I definitely agree with that, AJ. So, of course, as you just spoke, we're just talking about Cromwell this weekend. If anyone that wasn't watching or hasn't been aware, that was the first 2 rounds of the Hydrolink War of the Wings that was accommodated to with these 7 Americans that have come, and we've got all of this international racing that's been going on. So it's been fantastic, and it was really a build-up to what's happening this weekend at Ruapuna Speedway as well. But it was actually the first feature that they ran was the Saturday night, AJ, and it was Caleb Montgomery picking up that win, racing for Team Born Racing. And what an amazing race that was between himself and Jamie Duff for a little bit there. They had the white flag, checkered flag, red flag situation happen in the middle there when an accident happened with Daniel Thomas, but it was really Caleb's right from the start.
Yeah, it was, and he's another guy that when I was up in the States in August I saw, and I thought this guy You know, he's a dockyard brawler sort of racer. That's one of the things I like about Northern California. It is predominantly quarter mile racing, and that bullring stuff, in my opinion, just produces something really special. And I was so impressed with Caleb up in the States, and you know, he actually fits in personality-wise and racer-wise with the Bourne team. You know, the Bournes are hard cases too, and you know, Caleb, he's doing a very good job in that car.
Definitely agree. So we're looking forward to seeing all of that come into action here at Ruapuna Speedway this weekend. But that wraps up our review segment of tonight's episode. Now moving on to our share and win competition, where we've given away 10 free adult passes to this Friday night's K&T Drainage Hydrolink War of the Wings round, featuring those international drivers. So this week, our 10 winners of the free adult pass are Cherie Richards, Mike Wilson, Nikki Barton, Lorraine Lambert, Gemma Ward, Brad Crocker, Nicole Richards, Connor Aberhart, Fiona Johnson, and Lydia Stevens. Congratulations to those 10. Your pass will be at the VIP window of the main ticket gate on Friday. And welcome back to tonight's episode. Congratulations to our 10 share and win winners. We'll now get into the preview, which of course is the next 2 rounds of the Hydrolink War of the Wings. Friday night presented by K&T Drainage, Saturday night presented by Shearing's Earth Moving here at Ruapuna Speedway. AJ, there's a lot going on this weekend. We've got all 6 of our classes racing at some point over the 2 nights as well here. So it means a lot to a lot of our support classes as well to get to race with such a big audience, as we're expecting a huge crowd here and a lot of live streaming numbers as well with such an international audience, which is awesome. So anyone that's tuning in from overseas, welcome to Ruapuna Speedway. We look forward to showcasing what sprint car racing looks like here in Christchurch. We'll start off with what we can expect to see this weekend. As I said, there's a lot going on. Starting with Friday night will be the Midget Canterbury Champs that they didn't get to run after the rain out on the 15th of November. AJ, the Canterbury Champs has got a lot of prestige behind it. We've got a cool trophy that's got a lot of names on it as well, and guys like Len McCoubrey will be itching to get their name back on that one.
Oh yeah, and like you did right, the Canterbury Championship actually is older than the South Island Championship, believe it or not. But yeah, it means a lot to them, and it'll bring the best. And I think as far as the big occasion goes, it will bring the best out of the support drivers. No one wants to be sitting on the sideline when the big dance is in town, and it's going to bring it out in all of them. It's going to be really, really hard fought, that Canterbury Championship. I may lean slightly towards Jay Chadwick, but when we've got the likes of Travis Buckley coming into town for it, boy, there's a cat among the pigeons. And
Travis has been doing a lot of racing over in Australia as well, so it's interesting. I think he was a South Australian champion, I should say, in the speed cars over there in Australia, but it's the first time we've seen him this season, and we've seen him have really solid runs here at Ruapuna before, so looking forward to getting to watch Travis run. As you say as well, Jay Chadwick, Ben Morgan, Sam McCrenna had a really good opening night as well, so the midget field is really outstanding this season as we're seeing a lot of growth through a lot of these drivers. But there's also a number of other series being hosted over the weekend as well. The V6 wingless sprints will have their Battle of the Sixes on Saturday night as well. AJ, that's one definitely to watch for the point standings as well, and they're always, getting out there and getting after it. So it's quite a fun class to watch.
Oh, it is, and it's got some real characters as well. It's almost a throwback as far back to the good old days as you can get. The guy that just turns up and does what he wants to when he wants to, sort of thing, and it's a real mixed bag. There's young guys and there's guys that may be very close to the end of their racing days and so on, but they go out there and they put on a really good, honest show. And what I do like about the class is you can see everything that they're doing. You can't hide from your mistakes when there's no wing over the top of you.
As also, I forgot to mention when we were speaking about the midgets before, it's also round 2 of the Graham Hill Roofing Midget Super Series on the Saturday night as well. So there's lots of stakes up for the midgets this weekend, which I'm looking forward to getting to see that all play out. But Saturday night is also the Rhinestone TQ Memorial. AJ, this is a very special one to the Canterbury community and people that have been around TQ racing. Rhinestone was someone very special to the Christchurch TQ Club who we lost a number of years ago, and this event is in memory of him. It's 17 laps in honour of his number 17, and and it's a very special one with a very cool and very heavy trophy that they get to present on that Saturday night, and it means a lot to the TQ club just being able to honour someone that did so much for the class around New Zealand as well.
Yeah, he did, and Ryan actually put his career on hold very much. He was still racing, but they were running the experimental, water-cooled cars and so on, and he wasn't eligible for prize money, he wasn't eligible for points, he wasn't eligible for a whole lot of things, but he was prepared to put all that to one side because he could see that the future of TQ racing needed to be slightly different, and now it's pretty much universal, and it is very personal because Stoney was a hell of a good guy and he helped so many people. He was one of them instrumental in getting quarter midgets racing here at Ruapuna. His legacy deserves to be remembered for many, many, many years.
And we've got Jaden Corkle on the entries from Nelson for that one as well. So there's a few making the trip across to Ruapuna, and I think we're sitting at about 19, 20 entries for the TQs for Saturday night. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that race. I think it might be fastest off the back. It is usually, I'm not sure 100% on the format that they're running this weekend, but it's definitely something that a lot of TQ guys want to win, AJ, as you said. But we've also got the lightning sprints and the quarter midgets as support classes this weekend as well. AJ, we know the numbers of the quarter midgets are out of control. And in a good way, we're seeing a lot of growth in the class, and that is the class that funnels, what we're seeing today in all the other classes. A lot of them have come from quarter midget racing, and that lightning sprint class has been a lot of fun to watch so far this year as well.
Yeah, and numbers is a key component of that, because when you've got numbers, you've got more races within races. Someone may dominate, but there's always a really good scrap going on between more than just one or two cars. It's spread right through the whole field, and both of them are very much fun classes to watch. There's no hot dog divisions at Ruapuna.
No, there is not, and that leads us straight into the sprint cars for this weekend, sitting at about 25, 26 entries for this weekend, and we're really looking forward to seeing these 7 Americans get back on track. Of course, we've seen Brennan Crouch at Carnival Fireworks Night, and again last season as well, but then we've got Jonathan Allard, Joel Myers Jr. to really elevate the field, and then guys that have never been to Ruapuna Speedway. We've got Tanner Holmes, we've got Caleb Montgomery, we've got Brian Murphy, and we've got Mariah Eade, and they're all making their debut here at Ruapuna Speedway, and what a spectacle it's going to be.
Yeah, I do think Ruapuna may lend itself a little more to their style of racing. There is nothing quite like Cromwell. Ruapuna's a cookie cutter quarter mile track. These guys live, breathe and eat quarter mile tracks in Northern California. So I would not be at all surprised to see the 1 lap record go. We're not going to have the worst weather in the world, and we're not going to, by all accounts, we're not going to have that hot, dry wind that does sort of burn things up pretty quickly. But also the strength of the South Island teams and young Zachary Sokol. This here is a better field than we probably had for most New Zealand championships. It is strong right through, and if you take the 7 American guys out, there's probably 7 Kiwis that are very, very capable of running right up the front with them. It's going to be game on, and it's going to be a battleground.
Let's chat about some of those Kiwis. Of course, I think that we could expect to see Jamie Duff will be wanting to do really well, but Connor Rangi is another one that does exceptionally well here at Ruapuna Speedway. He didn't get quite the chance to showcase himself against those Americans down in Cromwell. The accident on Friday night involving Brian Murphy and Steve Duff Jr. took Connor out of competition for Saturday night, AJ, but I think he'll be really itching to get back to victory lane here at Ruapuna and show what he can do in front of these Americans.
Yeah, absolutely, and sponsors Dalton's, they are big supporters of Ruapuna, as you mentioned before, and there's a whole lot of them here, and to be quite honest, it's hard to separate between Jamie and Connor, who is the most popular, because when a driver wins, the crowd get them behind them, and for both of those guys, they make a whole lot of noise. And Connor is a guy that is driven almost by redemption. He wants to redeem himself. He wants to be remembered, for the performance that he makes on the night. He doesn't dwell too much on things. Yeah, he gets a little bit upset when it doesn't go right, but that goes out the back door. He is a fiercely competitive young racer, and this is a good opportunity for him to make a big impression.
We've also got Dylan Forsey. Of course, we've seen him make really good inroads in the sprint car class. I almost said quarter midget. It's been a few years since he's been in those, but sprint cars for Dylan Forsey, he's been doing really well. He's performed very well as a points racer for the Hydraulic War of the Wings as well, so Dylan will be looking to capitalise on that. We saw Caleb Bourne have some really good runs down there in Cromwell as well, of course with the new addition of a teammate with Caleb coming in as well, so You've got that new dynamic going on for Team Born Racing as well. You've got the newbies like Harry McIntyre and Liam Astle, but there's just so much going on, and Matt Honeywell will be looking to improve on his results from Cromwell as well. So there's a lot of hungry sprint car drivers this weekend.
Yeah, and let's not forget Matthew Levisage as well. Like Matthew spent a lot of time racing up in the North Island, so he was exposed to very fierce and intense racing week in, week out, and pretty decent exposure to international competition. He's very cool, he's very calculated, and they've had some frustrating mechanical runs lately, but I don't see that happening for the 78 car this weekend. So there's just so many possibilities. It's going to be a logjam at the top of the tree.
It's going to be 2 nights of sprint car racing you do not want to miss here at Ruapuna Speedway. As you can see behind us, we've got the trophies all set up as well. There's an overall challenge trophy as well that is going to be awarded to the country, that with the top 7 drivers for New Zealand and the 7 Americans. Points will be calculated, and overall there will be a winner, USA versus New Zealand. So we're looking forward to seeing how that all plays out as well, AJ. Just adds another element to the event and really adds, a bit of competition as well. Just, not so much like one-on-one driver, but as a team, you want to accumulate the most points as possible together.
Yeah, and this is another one of the sort of little initiatives put in by the guys that made this series possible. Peter Murphy, he's been around racing for an awful long time. He's an Australian who was a New Zealand champion, who lives in the USA, raced in the USA, promoted in the USA. He has seen a lot. And then you've got Jason Scott, and he's a guy I admire greatly, because he wants to challenge the status quo with a speedway meeting. He ran a speedway meeting at Cromwell once that was halfway through a rock concert. They got rid of Jordan Luck, and on came the sprint cars. And so little initiatives like that come from very fertile minds, and both Scotty and Murph are guys that really want to establish things and just make something a little bit different and create new talking points.
Definitely agree. So speaking of people that have been a part of making this series such an experience for all of the drivers involved and both tracks involved as well, AJ, we're going to bring on Gary Thomas in just a few minutes. And he is a commentator from Northern California, one that you know very well. And he's been brought over to New Zealand, and he's, having a vacation, and he's getting to experience some of the racing, and he's getting to call some of the sprint car races this weekend as well. So a really cool element to add that American accent into the live stream and into the crowd as well.
Yeah, and that's just another one of these little ideas. It's an American show, so let's bring an American announcer. And Gary knows those guys inside back to front, but he also is a really astute follower of speedway racing, and so he's actually a big fan of Methanol Madness, so that gives him a few points for starters. But he's also, the world is so small now that you can watch events just so easily, and so he knows what's going on down here, and you'd actually might be quite surprised how many Northern Californians are aware of speedway racing in New Zealand, and a lot of that is through Buddy Kofoid coming down here and racing for Daniel Anderson. It sort of spread the name, spread the word, and all of a sudden, when you go up there and you say you're connected with Ruapuna or Cromwell or the War of the Wings, people actually understand the language. They know what we're talking about. So be interesting to see what Gary's got to say.
Well, I'll let you go and bring Gary into tonight's episode of Methanol Madness. We're very excited to have all of this international audience. Of course, Gary's really added a lot to the live stream and the commentary already, so we're looking forward to having him here at Ruapuna Speedway while AJ brings him over. We're really excited to kick off tomorrow night. So we'll have hot laps happening just after 5 p.m. tomorrow for all of the sprint car drivers. Following that, we'll get into the rest of the racing program, and we've got quite a few promotional items happening on this Saturday as well that we're looking forward to. So we'll let these two come in now, and we'll let AJ catch up with Gary Thomas.
It is loud in here, isn't it?
It is very loud in here. Yeah, so firstly, this is Gary Thomas. We've been good mates for a long, long time, Gary, and I was just making the comment before about the alignment that, or the connection that, the Northern California area in particular has with New Zealand, and more so down here with Ruapuna and Cromwell and the War of the Wings and so on. And I think a big part of that is the quarter mile stuff. We love it in New Zealand, and it's meat and potatoes for you over there in Northern California, isn't it? The quarter milers.
Yeah, pretty much California is all quarter miles. We have 1/2 mile. We ran in 6 years. So, all of our drivers here are really going to like this tight bull ring, I think, that we talked about last week, and got to look at the track and really looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah. What are the key differences that you've noticed between racing in New Zealand? You've saw 2 nights down at Cromwell, and you can have 2 nights here, but there are some very big differences with how we do things, mainly through the officiating. We run under a national body. You guys have got, I don't know how many sanctioning bodies.
Yeah. We talked about it. The Speedway New Zealand is something we don't have. There's not really a governing body in the United States of America. We have our different sanctioning bodies like NARC, which is, like War of the Wings we talked about. So that was certainly one of the differences. And then the format is completely different than what we're used to. Heat races with 16 cars in it is unheard of in California. I was talking to Peter Murphy that in back home, if we did that, it'd be kind of cool, but everybody would hate it. So we probably couldn't do that.
Yeah, and the Northern California thing, we've got that connection via Buddy Kofoid and so on, but there's an awful lot of New Zealanders that might, sort of tend to hang out in Northern California. You've got Roger Gleason with the Hunt Magneto series and so on. So, I mentioned before that people up there are very aware of us, and, is my thought backed up by fact that people know what we're doing?
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's been a lot of interest by all of our California fans and racers up there, and we actually had the Jimmets up there racing for a couple of weeks with the Hunt Tour, and it was good to see those guys down here, hang out with them for a little bit. But the interest these 2 weeks has been pretty amazing. The reach that Tanner, Caleb, Mariah, and everybody's had on their Facebook pages is really exciting, and hopefully some fans will come next year to this deal, and we can continue it on.
Yeah, it certainly would be good, and like bringing the guys down here, some of them are big names, but it must have been some difficulty in them adapting to cars and teams that they had probably never heard of before they got on the plane.
Yeah, definitely different. I've read about in different books and stuff. I know you've written some books about the guys that have come down and raced New Zealand and followed along with the drivers coming to Australia and stuff. So this is the first time I've been able to see exactly what they go through. Some of the drivers brought their own shocks and different things, obviously their own seats. So it was just kind of getting comfortable with it, and it was an interesting process to see them kind of building these cars and putting their own personal touch on it with the teams they're racing for.
Yeah, is there any of the local guys that you've looked at that you've thought this guy could do with 6 weeks up in Northern California and really make him?
Yeah, it was actually really fun to see some of the drivers. Zach Sokol, I've gotten to kind of know him and his father Ozzy, hanging out over at the house and everything, and he's got a lot of talent. Daniel Thomas, the first night, I thought he was tremendous going through the field, but he had some bad luck. But a lot of fast Kiwi drivers, and it's kind of funny. Some of the officials over there were saying, our Kiwis might have something for your Americans, and I said, that's fine. As long as we see a good race, that's all we care about.
Yeah, okay, the American boys have dominated stuff so far, but, for the likes of Jamie Duff and... Jacob McIntyre, these guys have done like 3 or 4 races since April. You guys have done 50 or 60 or more.
And I was going to say, Jacob McIntyre really impressed me. Another guy that I had the chance to meet the first day we got here, and he was a lot of fun to hang out with. And, I thought he was just a guy that liked to party and hang out. Didn't know he was a good racer, but, man, he was tremendous on the Saturday night program. And Jamie Duff has always been great. I think we talked about he's been to California racing for Rod Tyner in the past, so he was fast. But, no, it was a lot of fun. The people I met so far have been second to none, just like when we meet them over in America. It's been a great time so far.
Yeah. Tell us about how the club deal works over there. We've mentioned a comparison between the Hydrolink War of the Wings organisation and the Northern Auto Racing Club, or everyone calls it NARC, but that seems to be the cornerstone for racing.
Yeah, California is kind of different than the rest of the country, where we have 410s and 360s. Both are very prevalent. NARC is, of course, our 410 sanctioning body, and then we have the SCCT 360 series. So pretty much everybody bounces back and forth. But, the Hydrolink War of the Wings is a great series. I know I followed along. We've known each other for years and years, so I'm finally getting the chance to see it, and that is pretty cool.
Yeah. First impressions of the Ruapuna Stadium. You went up and had a wee look before.
Yeah, definitely cool. Different than Cromwell, where there's actually some grandstand seating. It's not all just stadium seating, so that was cool. The track looks like a tight bull ring, and everybody talked about it. It's, like we said, going to kind of suit some of our California drivers, so we'll see if that's the case.
Yeah, one thing that we don't do here that you guys do so well is that sort of tailgating and the parties before racing, and it certainly does help, doesn't it, with the race fans? It forms communities. They've got the very strong, the Hoseville mob up there in Northern California, but that tailgating, it creates another community within the sport.
Yeah, what I noticed here too is it's kind of a throwback to how California was about 10 to 15 years ago with the social aspect, where California, we don't really get to hang out as much as we used to. Back in the day, the teams used to get together, have some fun, but over here, pretty amazing at Jason Scott's Bar and Grill, I guess we'll call it. All the teams and come down and hang out, have a good time, and the fans, like I said, sitting there and watching the fans at Cromwell with that stadium seating was pretty cool. Something that we don't really get the chance to do as much anymore, but Gold Cup, Trophy Cup, some of our bigger shows, we still have that chance. But down here has been it's been kind of like a throwback.
Yeah, and you've been in the adventure capital of New Zealand, haven't you? Did you do anything crazy? Did you throw yourself off a bridge or anything like that?
No, I didn't throw myself off a perfectly good bridge. We let the crazy people do that. But we did the luge, and that was probably the most fun we've had. I've heard the stories about that, and back in the days with the Outlaws, Jonathan Allard talked about how there were some injuries on the luge with people banging into each other, but we made it all back in one piece, and that was probably the most fun we had. We did some jet boating and everything, and that was really cool as well. But I can't thank Jason Scott, Peter Murphy enough for letting us all tag along and do these different excursions and everything, and bringing all these great racers down to have some fun.
Yeah, and you've discovered meat pies.
Yeah, had meat pie at Cromwell, had a couple of those, and then up here on the drive, Jason Scott brought us to Feely's or Haley's. I still can't get the name right, but it was tremendous. He said that's the best pie you can have, and I got 2 of them on the way up.
Yeah. Oh, way to go. Actually, let's just skip back to Jonathan Allard, because we were talking before how, most of these young guys have done, 40, 50, 60 and what have you races. Jonathan's probably done just as many as the Christchurch boys. Talent or skill is always there, isn't it? And he is not a spent force.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see Jonathan down here. I mean, back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, he really was kind of the standard in California between himself and Tim Kading and Brent Kading. Those were the 3 guys you strive to beat on a weekly basis, and we don't get the chance to see J.A. up in California, obviously, as much since he's down here so often, and been great to see him. He gave me a little tour of the Highlands Park over there to see all the cool race cars in the windows, and gave the tour of Cromwell. It's a real big, bustling city.
Oh, yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah. So, I think, I made a comment the other day. I wouldn't be surprised if JA is right at the top there with that New Zealand Championship, because, I know your family in particular are always really big followers of him. And, he's a guy that I think that these young bucks have really just brought out the best in him again.
Yeah, it really is. He was a guy back in the day that would kind of take some young racers under his wing and just kind of help mentor them. And talking to some of the young racers here, they kind of said the same thing. So he's still doing that. I think it's very admirable for what Jonathan does, and it's still cool to see him racing at age 49 or something now. I mean, that's incredible to think he's still going at this advanced age.
Yeah, how old was Brent Kading when he retired?
He was in his 60s, I guess, so Jonathan has a lot of years to go.
Yeah, so here we go. Gary Thomas, you are the voice of sprint car racing in Northern California. It's an absolute privilege to have you here, and we look forward to having some fun this weekend, and send you away with a real impression on Ruapuna.
Well, thank you for having me. Like I said, I just want to thank Jason, Peter, the entire staff, both Ruapuna, Central Motor Speedway, for having us down. It's been a pleasure. If I never get the chance to come back to New Zealand, we've made some memories that'll last a lifetime. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I've gone across the Pacific 21 times, so you can try that for here.
I might try 21 times. We'll see. I'll be old though by then.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we've got Louise. She's going to go out there and do some interviews, and she's got Caleb Montgomery.
You're technically the only feature winner so far here in New Zealand of the Americans as part of this Hydrolink War of the Wings series. Obviously, those 2 nights at Cromwell there, 2 very different nights, a lot of weather going on. Describe your first couple of days in New Zealand there ahead of that event.
Well, the first couple of days, the first day we got dusted out, or whatever you may say. It was definitely a very interesting start to the weekend, because we didn't get to run the first full feature, so I didn't get to get the full feel of the car. And then the second night, we kind of got to run the 2 heat races like we did the first night, and we kept on kind of getting to build off the car, and I got a full day with the car, kind of looking at it, testing some things out, and noticing a couple things going into the second night feature. And right before the feature, actually, we did a 4-bar change, so it was absolutely incredible that my team, and we got it on. They were yelling at us to get on the track, so that was incredible in its own defeat. But kind of going into the first feature, the full feature, the whole night, we started second, and I got a really good jump on the start, and we're ultimately able to get the lead and kind of control and dictate the pace of the race from there. But Cromwell's very interesting, and 2 distinct corners, to say the least. One corner is a super sweeper, and the other one's a bull ring. So it's definitely interesting how much speed you can really carry into the second, or into 1 and 2. I always get them mixed up, but interesting how much speed you can carry in from 3 and 4 into 1 and 2. So it was a lot to kind of conquer mentally and conquer just on my driving style. I had to change up my driving style. It felt like every single corner I had to just remember where I was at every single lap. But ultimately we got to come home with a win, and I can't thank enough the Bourne guys because they gave me the race car and they gave me the opportunity to be first place. So without them, we wouldn't be anywhere. But thank you to everyone, Caleb, Jake, Ray, because without any of them, it wouldn't be possible. But the car felt great, and I'm really looking forward to Rapuna this weekend because this track looks a little bit more something like we're comfortable with back at home.
So a very mixed bag there from Cromwell, of course, but looking forward to this weekend at Ruapuna as well. You know, it's a track that you've never been to before. You just were speaking off air there that you haven't done a lot of research. You haven't seen a lot of videos of this place. So what are you expecting coming into this weekend, knowing that you kind of like the unknown?
I do really like the unknowing because, like I said with Cromwell, I didn't watch a single video. I know that's not really politically correct as a driver to say, but I don't like to watch a lot of videos. I like to kind of just watch the racers and watch how everyone kind of adapts to a racetrack, because that's when I feel like I'm my best, is when I watch everyone race and I can kind of dictate where I'm going to pass, when I'm going to make moves. And with Rapuna, I watched a couple heat race laps and I kind of saw how the track was. So coming into this New Zealand Tour weekend, I only watched a couple, maybe 2 or 3 laps at Rapuna. I know I'm very different than Tanner Holmes. I guarantee that guy studied like crazy. So I never even seen Cromwell even a lap before this. I saw Peter sent me a couple videos of it. He showed me a couple of pace laps of him watering the track. So I saw him watering the track, and I noticed that one corner was different from the other, but I didn't do a whole lot of research. I just kind of knew that I was going to tackle it coming into the weekend by watching how everyone raced, watched where I could make better speed, notice what my dad told me, notice where he kind of said I made speed, lost speed, gained it. And yeah, so I think I'm going to kind of take the same approach to Rapuna, and I feel like wherever the guys go, I'm going to always try and go the opposite and always try and make the most of the opposite lane, because that's how you pass people in sprint car racing, is by going to the opposite lane, by making speed in the opposite lane. If you follow guys in dirt racing, you're kind of being silly. So we're just going to try and go where they're not and make the most amount of momentum where they're not. And I feel like if we can do that, we'll ultimately be the best that we can. And if we're the best that we can, hopefully we end up on the top step again.
So Caleb is from California, of course, and a lot of these guys that we've brought over for this weekend are from California, where there's a lot of those shorter tracks, quarter miles, bull rings, as Caleb's just described them there. But Caleb, for those that aren't super familiar with your racing career, and you've had a really stellar one so far this season back in our winter over there in California as well. You finished second in a high limit racing feature as well. So just give us some background onto how you got into racing and what this season's been like and whose car you drive over there.
I guess we had a couple of good runs. We're a family team. It's just me, my dad, my mom, my girlfriend, Stevie. We're very fortunate. We have a very tight group of people, and I got a couple of crew guys that I bring along, Michael Pombo, and Rob Solomon. I got a very amazing group of people, and my buddy Max actually came out for Turkey Night, so I'm very fortunate. I'm surrounded by a lot of close group of friends. We don't just go to the races together. We hang out every single week. I'm very fortunate, so that's what I like to lead with. But yeah, we had a couple of good runs, but for the most part, we're just a family team. I don't really run that many other people's cars. I kind of just run my own stuff, and during the weeks, I like to set up and build my own race cars. So that's kind of where I feel like our strong suit is I put all my time into building my own race cars and setting up my own race cars during the week, and I have a very structured program from week in, week out. I like to do all the washing on Sunday, maintenance on Mondays, tires on Tuesday, wash the trailer on Wednesday, and then kind of get everything to race on Thursday and kind of get everything in ordinance. And then we go race Friday and Saturday with the family team. But I live in my house, and then I step 20 feet outside of my house and I'm in the race shop. And I'm in the race shop from sun up to sundown if I'm not doing other things for my mom's business. So we're doing that mostly, but I feel like when it comes to week in, week out racing, I've kind of stepped away from watching as many race tapes, and I've more taken the approach of just being there with the racetrack, watching what the racetrack's doing, see what other lines or people are running, see where I can make speed on other people, and see where we can kind of capitalize on other people's mistakes, because it's dirt racing, no one's perfect, and everyone's going to make mistakes. So if I can capitalize on others' mistakes, that's where we're going to be better than them.
So as someone that's, you sound like you live, breathe, die racing, that what does that kind of come into play for coming into New Zealand, and it's your off season back in America and you get to do more laps here in the 95, so what did that mean for you, for that opportunity to come about and you just get to keep racing?
It honestly means a lot. I'm very fortunate for the Bourne team to kind of bring me in and get some more laps over this off season before Chili Bowl. I don't think I'm going to get to run Chili Bowl. That's kind of all up in the airs, but I'm mostly a wing sprint car driver, and that's where my heart is. But I get to run a little bit of non-wing here and there. Like we ran Turkey Night a couple times, or we ran Turkey Night the weekend prior before we came here, and we had a couple of good runs. But it means a lot because these guys noticed that, and we talk to each other, and they allow me to do what I want on the race car. So when they got here, they came here a day early to Cromwell. Absolutely a phenomenal facility at the Highlands. But they came there a day early. I got to go through the core. I got to go through Caleb's car today, and I got to do a couple of things that they're not necessarily traditionally familiar with, but I got to do some things that make me comfortable, and I'm going to share them and hopefully make Caleb a little bit more comfortable in the seat of his race car. But ultimately, I feel like what makes me comfortable and what has led to the success of my season is I like to work on the race car, and I'm a crew guy at heart. I love working on race cars. I love race cars. That's my prime passion. I love working on them. I love cutting on them. I love welding on them. I love doing absolutely everything to do with race cars. So that's where my passion is, and I'm just the lucky guy that gets to drive it on Saturday.
Well, we're very happy to have you here and being able to witness you do your racecraft out there in that 95 as well, which all came to a head with that feature win there on Saturday at Central Motor Speedway. So describe what that was like. Did do you expect to win so early? And you've only got 4 races to do it. So I suppose the kind of motto was to just really get after it.
Yeah, I feel like the motto was really just to kind of watch and see where these guys slacked and where I could improve on their slackness. So we kind of just watched and see where I could pick up the slack, because I feel like the guys are good here, the guys are good back home. But everyone makes mistakes. Like I said, it's dirt racing. No one's perfect. So if I can improve on their mistakes and they make mistakes my strong suit, like at home, rough tracks are people's weakness, and I try and make that my strong suit. So if I can improve on that, that's kind of what I aid and what makes me a better race car driver at home. And I feel like also working on my own race cars at home and being familiar with my own setup and being familiar with my own car, that's what kind of makes me better at home. I feel like that's my strong suit. And that's where I try and focus. I don't try and focus on race tapes or the racing or all those things. I try and focus on other people's weaknesses, and if I can make other people's weaknesses my strong suit, that's where I feel like I excel. So, but ultimately, we got a win out of the way. I'm very blessed. I'm very thankful. That was awesome. I didn't know if I was going to come here and get a win coming racing against Tanner. Tanner's really good. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, so he's definitely a phenomenal race car driver. And to be able to capitalize in a heat race against him, I felt like beating him in a heat race was honestly bigger to me as a personal driver than winning the feature. So beating Tanner in that heat race, that gave me the confidence in order to start second in that race and start second and kind of take control of the race and ultimately lead those laps, dictate the pace, and just make the most of every single lap that we had. But to come away with 1 win out of the first weekend, out of the full race, we won the only race this weekend. That's pretty cool. So hopefully my guys really deserve it. So hopefully I can give them a couple more wins. I know that they really deserve it. So our aim is to win and sweep the whole entire weekend. So let's sweep the whole weekend for them.
I like that spirit a lot. So you guys are here for just over 2 weeks, I believe. You leave early next week. What are some tourism things that you guys have been doing? You update your social media a lot. We've seen a lot of clips. I believe you went bungee jumping. What has the sightseeing been like around the Queenstown area and around Central Otago?
We went and we saw a couple areas around Queenstown. A lot of drinking. You guys like to drink here in New Zealand, so we did a lot of drinking. That's kind of crazy. I don't drink a lot back home. I swear I've drank more this week than I've drank all year. I mean, Trophy Cup's a big week for us back in the States, but man, we like to kick back some beers here in New Zealand. So we did a lot of drinking. We did a lot of eating. I got to experience you guys' sausage wraps. Those were freaking phenomenal. We got to do that. I got to bungee jump. I'm not very fond of heights, but I know Tanner's really scared of heights, so we got to do that. I feel like I ultimately only did that because I wanted to be a better qualifier, and I feel like before you make the jump, that's kind of what it feels like before you push off of qualifying. So I did the bungee jump only to conquer fears, and I feel like conquering fears is a big thing in dirt racing. Nothing's safe in dirt racing. This is a very dangerous sport, so if I can conquer fears on any kind of level playing field, I feel like that'll just make me a better race car driver. So we did the bungee jumping to ultimately be a better race car driver, and yeah, I don't think we got to go jet boating. I got really sunburned. If you guys can see, I'm peeling. Oh my God, I'm burnt. My girlfriend's been rubbing baby cream on me all weekend. My face is burnt to shit. Sorry, I know this is live, but man, yeah. So I've definitely gotten sunburned. Your guys' UV rays are second to none here. It's crazy. The sun absolutely cooks me. I'm a white boy at my heart and all my skin. So, I mean, I've gotten burnt. I've gotten to do a lot of cool experiences. But honestly, I'm thankful for the New Zealand experience. And hopefully Lauren guys and Jason with Edge Racing Performance brings me back again because I love it here.
Well, thank you for your time, Caleb. We look forward to watching you the next 2 nights here at Ruapuna Speedway.
Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can kick some more ass this weekend.
That's the spirit of Caleb Montgomery, and we'll head back to AJ now, and we're going to wrap up tonight's episode of Methanol Madness. As we cut this way, AJ, you join me here to wrap up tonight's episode. Let's swap sides so we're back on the right side. AJ, what a great episode tonight. We've got to really experience the atmosphere here at Ruapuna Speedway. You know, this Fan Fest tonight is the first time we've run something as a Fan Fest. Of course, we've seen the Front End Challenge as a part of the Gold Cup and Speed Week, but, you know, this has worked really well. We've had the Outlaw Sims in the background there. We've got lots of guys running sim races right now, and of course, the Americans have been signing autographs, selling merch. There's lots going on here at Ruapuna Speedway this weekend, and it is not one to miss. AJ, I'm really looking forward to getting racing tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that really has come through tonight is how grateful these drivers are for the opportunity. You know, they're down here, they're not doing a chore, they're living an experience, and it is so good. And we're just so grateful that, you know, Scotty and Peter Murphy went in and did the hard yards and made it happen. But boy, I'm looking forward to this weekend like nothing else. I've been coming here for an awful long time, Louise, an awful long time. And I don't think I've ever been quite as excited about the potential that a weekend can bring us. You know, when we have a New Zealand championship, you know, that's good. When we have a Gold Cup, that's really good too. But this here is the unopened can, and it's an energy drink, this one, and I have no idea what's going to fizz out the top of it.
No, me either, but you want to be trackside to find out what's going to happen this weekend with the Hydrolink War of the Wings. Tomorrow is presented by K&T Drainage, Saturday presented by Shearing's Earth Moving, both massive supporters of Speedway here at Ruapuna Speedway, and we're looking forward to bringing you all of the action. That's going to wrap up tonight's episode of Methanol Madness. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you to everybody that joined us here at the meet and greet tonight at the Speedway. We're pleased to bring you interviews from Gary Thomas and a feature winner, Caleb Montgomery, already here in New Zealand. Looking forward to a massive weekend. So thank you, AJ, for your time tonight, and we will wrap up this episode here, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to join us tomorrow night or Saturday night, head over to ruapunaspeedway.co.nz, purchase your tickets online to beat the queues. There is bound to be queues at that main gate tomorrow, so get in early, buy your tickets online, skip straight ahead and join us here in the stadium. If you can't make it trackside, head to rjptv.co.nz to join us via the live stream as well, and check out our social media for a handy wee graphic for those of you that are joining from overseas as well with those different time zones. But until next time, keep your foot up it.